Hello, and in this video we're going to talk about stem and leaf diagrams, histograms, and measures of position, sometimes called percentiles, sometimes called median, and quartiles. So those are the three topics we're going to cover today in this video. Let's start with stem and leaf. A stem and leaf is a display that shows the initial value plus its extra value, so it's like tens and hundreds here, or it has two positions. It's like a bar graph turned to its side. So we have what we call it's a diagram that shows a list of values. We break it down into two parts, a stem part and a leaf part, which and then we have a key that tells us what the stem and leaf means. So if we have a stem and a leaf, we can tell you what this means. So if you see a 54 or a 5 and a 4, that might mean 54. It might mean 5.4. It could mean 0.54. We don't know until we have a key of this, what the stem and leaf is. In this case, we're going to do an example where a stem and leaf is just, it has the tens and the ones here. So we're going to do this example. It's right here in the book. It's number 74. It says construct a stem leaf graph with these numbers. Well, the stem part of that's going to be the tens place. So it's going to be 7, 8, 5, or 9. Okay, so we usually list all of them from the low end to the high end. So we have a 5 for a 51. Okay, we don't have any 60s. We don't have any we have 70s next, right? And then we have 80s and 90s. So the stem is going to be that part of the thing, of this value. And then the leaf is going to be, so this represents 51. If we had a 52, we put a 2 right after this. If we have a 53, we put a 3 after that. But we only have one 51. Okay, the next one is 6. We don't have any 6s. We go to 7s, and then we have a 77, 78, 76, and a 79. So I'm going to list them in order. So 76 is first, and then 77, 78, and 79. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 70s. There would be 4 leaves. Okay, there happen to be all different. If you had 2 78s, you would write 2 8s in a row here. I'm putting them in numerical order here. You don't put commas. You just leave a space, a little space in between. We have an 81, an 86, an 82, an 84. So we're going to start off with 81. Then we have an 82. We don't have an 83. We have the next number is 84, and then 86. 84, 86. Okay, and then we have a 99. We can double check. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 numbers. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 numbers in the list. So we have the correct graph here. Okay, so that's how you do for stem and leaf. You write down what it's going to be representing by looking at your values, and then you're going to write a stem and a leaf. You're only going to write one unit here, and this could be more than one unit. We're going to do another example here from 75, where I use a partial example, and where the stem and leaf is a little bit different. Okay, so let's take a look at that one and draw another stem and leaf from that information. Okay, so in 75, there was a list of states. Okay, let's make this smaller so I can take a look at it all at the same time. Okay, here we are. Okay, we're going to move this over so we can just see the first column. We're going to use this first column on the graph and just use these values only. Whoops. Okay, let's get these values so we can see them. There they are. So we're just going to use these values here for my stem and leaf right here. These values here for percentages. Okay, so there are 3 numbers here. So that means the stem part is going to have 2 numbers and the leaf part's going to be a decimal. Okay, so our key is going to be stem, leaf, 23 with a 5 would be equal to 23.5. Okay, so this is the key to that. So when we're doing this, we have a stem and a leaf. And the stem part is going to have 2 digits and the leaf is going to have 1. Leaf is always only has 1 digit. All right, we don't need to put a decimal in there. We're going to go through the list here and look to see what the lowest number here is on the stem. Well, 32, 24. So 21 is lower. Let's see, do we have a 20? So 21 is the first stem, so we put 21. And let's see what's the highest number, 32. Looks like 32 is the highest number, so you'd have 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. We list them all, 26, 27, even though they might not have leaves, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. And we're only doing a partial stem and leaf here. We're only going to take this column out of the chart. If we looked at the whole chart and did all 50 states, then we'd have a larger leaf here. Okay, so let's go down and see if our first number is 21. There's 1, it has a 0. Okay, I don't see any other 21s. Okay, then I'm going to go down my list here and see if I have 22s. Here's 1. It's 0.5. Here's 1. It's 0.2. 0.7. Okay, so 0.2 is my first one. Then 0.5. Then 0.7. So those go all under 22. Okay, 23. There isn't one. 24, a 0.5, a 0.3, 0.0. So a 0 would go first on 24. 24.0. We don't have any 24s down here, so it would be 0.3 and 0.5. So 3 and 5 here. Okay, 25s. We go down the list, see if we have any 25s. I don't see any. Okay, so we're good there. 26s, we go down the list here, see if there's a 26. There's one here. It's the only one I see. So that would be a 6 here after 26.6. Oh, there's a 26.5 also. So I missed that one. So we put a 5 and a 6 here. 27s. I don't see any. 28s. I saw several here. 28, 0. 28, 2. And 28, 4. 29s. There's a 29.6. A 29.6 and a 29.4, so 4, 6, and 6. 30, we have a 0.1, and that's it for 30s. 31, I didn't see one, and 32, we only have the one that's 2. So let's just double check to make sure we have all these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 numbers. So we have 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we have all the numbers. We just double check that. Now if we kept going, then we would just keep adding to the leaves if we kept this going. So that would be how you do a stem and leaf. All right, let's move on to histograms. A histogram is a way to, it's a bar graph that is connected with intervals instead of having categories at the bottom. What a bar graph has, it has intervals or classes at the base of the horizontal axis. So that means when we do this, we put classes down here, and we usually just name the classes by the first digit or the first number in the class. So if the classes went by 3 and they started with 10, so it'd be 10 and then 13 and then 16 and then 20, or I'm sorry, 19 and then 22. So these could be our classes. We'd have to have a chart of values that would have this, and then we have frequency over here. So everything that's in that class from 10 to 13 would be on a bar here. So we would have data 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have data that we would make a bar graph for. Let's say we had two numbers between 10 and 13. We could have a 10 and a 12. All right, that would be two numbers, and we put a bar for that. If we had 6 numbers between 13 and 16, we'd continue this line up to 6 and move it over. So those would be numbers less than 16, but could include 13. So this goes up to 13, this goes up to 16, up to 19, up to 22. Okay, so here's one that has 4 in it here, a class that has 4, and then maybe a class that has 1. Okay, so we'd have a chart like this. This is the bar graph that would have frequency over here, and we'd have your numbers down here, your intervals down here, and this would have as if you made a frequency chart, and then you could graph this as a bar, as a histogram. So frequency charts, frequency tables become histograms. In the display. All right, now the final thing in this video is measures of position. Okay, so we start with measures of positions by talking about quartiles. That's every 25%. 25% of the data. If you're talking the first quartile, that goes from 0 to 25. The second goes from 26 to 50%. The third goes from 51 to 75%. And the fourth goes from 76 to 100%. Now, at the breaks are what we call quartiles. So at 25%, we call it the first quartile break, or the first quartile. At the second quartile, we have a special name that's called a median. So the median that you computed in the past is at the 50th percentile. 50th percentile, 25th percentile. At the 75th percentile, it was called the third quartile. And at the 100th percentile, that's called the max value. And at 0, it's called the minimum. All right, so what happens is if we have a list of numbers, we can break them up into quartiles. Okay, let's go back to the stem and leaf, and we're going to break this one up into quartiles. Okay, so we'll take the second one because it has more numbers. Now, we had 17 numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So there's 17 numbers here. That means that if we take 17 divided by 2 to find the middle, because what we do for this is we find the middle and then we find the middle of the first half and the second half. So if we go 17 divided by 2, then we get 8.5. So that means there's going to be 8 numbers before and 8 numbers after, and the 9th number is going to be the median. So we go 8 here, we have the median, and then we have 8 more numbers. That gives us 17. So when we're going to the list, we're just finding the position. So we're looking for the 9th number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So at 26 point, the median is 26.6. Okay, it's this number right here. That's the median. Okay, that gives us 8 numbers before and 8 numbers after. Now we have these 8 numbers, we're going to have to break that in half. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that means we're going to end up with 4 numbers on each side because it has to be 8. So basically our break is right between this number here. It's not on a number, it's between 23.7 and 24.0. So if it's between the two numbers, then what we have to do is average them in order to get the quartile. So the first quartile is halfway between these. Well, if we look at this is a difference of 0.3. And half that difference, half of 0.3, is 0.15. So if we add 0.15 to this, we get 23.85 as the quartile 1, which was right Q1. So 23.85 is quartile 1. We have to go and average these two numbers. If you add them up and divide by 2, you get this. I just found the difference between them and then found the middle of that. All right, and then the quartile 3 is also 4 in. So it's between 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's between these two numbers. So it's between 29.4 and 29.6. Well, that's pretty easy. That's going to be 29.5 is our quartile 3. So in this list, we have a quartile 1, we have a median. We know what the minimum is. The minimum is 21.0 and the maximum is 32.2. Okay, and so those are positions. Now, percentile positions are given by a formula. So you're going to want to write this formula down for a percentile position. Let's just find it here. And then this is it right here. So this is in the book. It says formula review. This is the formula you want. So take a minute, pause the video, and then we'll get back to finding a position. All right, so in the first part of this formula, this is the percentile, or this is the position of the value. This is the percentile you want. So if you want the 27th percentile, you'd put 27 right here. N is how many numbers are in the list, and that list we had was 17, so we'd put 17 plus 1 if we're using the list we just had. So if you want the 27th percentile, you'd put 27 here, 17 here, work this out, and that would tell you which position you're at. Now, if you don't land on a number, okay, I is where it tells you it's the 5th number or whatever. If you get 5.3, that means you have to average the 5th and the 6th number. So you're still might have to average if you land in the middle. Okay? All right. If you're trying to go backwards, meaning that you want to find out what percentile it is. Let's say you have a number and you don't know what percentile it is in the list of data. You would use this formula here. X is the values counted from the bottom up to the number that you have, and Y is the number of data values that you want to find the percentile. Okay, that's given over here. It says X, the number of values counting up from the bottom of the list, but not including the particular data value you're on, and Y is the number of data values equal to the particular data value of which you want to find the percentile. So if there's a repeat, then Y is going to be 2. If there's only one of those values, you're going to put 1 in for Y. And N is the number of pieces of data that you have in your list. In this case, it would be 17, right? So you would work this out with X and Y, and then that would give you the percentile. Now you always want to round that one to the nearest integer when you get it. So it's going to give you a decimal, but you're going to round it to the nearest integer. All right, so you want to try some of these. Make sure you write these two down. Some of the problems you're going to encounter are going to ask you that. So let's go to a problem. Okay. All right, so let's look at this problem. Okay, it says find the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile. So basically it's wanting the first quartile, the second, the median, and the third quartile in this list, right? So you're just going to count how many there are. There's 32, right? So you're going to take 32 divided by 2, get 16. So it's between 16 and 17 because you got to have 16 on each side because there's only 32 data points. So it's going to be an average to find the 50th. You're going to average the two numbers. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 16. So it's between 47 and 49 is going to be the 50th percentile. So that's going to be 48. So I put in 48 here. Now, if you have 16 numbers and you cut that in half, that's going to give you 8 on each side evenly to get 16. So that means you're going to want the between the 8th and the 9th number averaged for the 25th percentile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's between 30 and 32. The average of that would be 31. Okay, and then you do the same thing starting at 49 because that's where your break is. There's 32, right? I'm sorry, there's 16 right here. So that means there's 16 up to 47 and 16 after. So you'll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 8. And so it's between 76 and 78. That means it's going to be 77 because that's halfway in between. So those are my values I would use for this data set for the percentiles. Now, if you're going to use a certain number, percentile number, then right here, 67th percentile, you want to use the formula. So if you're going to do that on this one, you're going to use this percentile formula right here. So you're going to put 67 in for K. You're going to put in 117 in for N. Figure that out. And then you're going to count to that data point. You want to always, if it's a decimal, you're going to count to the one below it. So if it's 27.3, then you're going to go to 27 and 28, counting them out in the order, and then average those two numbers together. That's how you find the percentile, using this formula.